You are listening to Redefining Rural, a podcast dedicated to celebrating, elevating, and changing the way we think about rural education in the state of Colorado and beyond. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media platform.
Welcome to the Redefining Rural podcast. I'm Michelle Murphy here with my partners in crime, Kirk Banghart and Danielle LaPlatte. Super excited today. We're sort of shifting away from our power of in-person learning theme and kind of digging in more deeply to some really cool sort of student-driven learning projects that we've all had the opportunity to admire and learn a bit more about. So the first person that we're going to talk to today is a gentleman by the name of Gregg Cannady. Kirk has met him, Danielle has not. Gregg has, as you will see, just a ton of energy, great passion for rural schools and rural students, and has done just an incredible amount of work bringing folks together to really make learning exciting and interesting for kids.
Yeah, I think we're very excited for everybody to hear about the projects and the work that he's been doing, because I think during this time, it's been really neat to hear a breath of fresh air about a different way to approach how we go about engaging kids in that process. So we're excited for you all to hear about what Gregg put together. And then hopefully in the next couple episodes, we're really going to highlight some great work that's going on across the state for our students in their classrooms.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michelle Murphy, and I am super excited to be here today with Gregg Cannady. I'm going to let Gregg introduce himself. I've known Gregg for years now. His energy is infectious. You will see that in seconds as I turn the mic over to him. He is doing some amazing things, amazing off-the-charts things for rural kids and rural schools and rural communities. So, Gregg, first, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Just for a few minutes, just talk about yourself, your background, your passions, and what led you to the work you're doing now with rural kids and communities.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I guess I'm one big accident because all the things that I'm doing now were not by design. I think they were more by discovery. And then once I discovered one thing, it'd be like, oh my goodness, what if? And so, I have a few music degrees and I have a doctoral degree in choral music. And so, but I was teaching in North Carolina, and my family was in Colorado, and I was really desperate to just be with my family. So I applied for this job called STEM. And what was that? I don't know what that was. And I wanted to be with my family. So I said, sure, I can do that, whatever that is. And then lo and behold, I discovered an approach to learning that really changed me as a musician. And then I saw that it could be applied to other things.
Talk about that a little bit. Talk about that approach.
Well, that approach is, I have an advanced degree in waving my arm in front of people and telling them what to do. And I'm really good at it. But the approach, and it doesn't need to be called STEM, because I think it's just a matter of how to communicate with humans to achieve things together and to learn together. Is not a one-sided event. It's more where, for me in music, I went from waving an arm and telling people what to do to like, okay, who's making a living in music? What's happening in the world? What's it like to be a composer? What's it like to be a gigging musician? What's it like to be a jazz musician who in real time can do these amazing things? How do they think? Who are they? And is my standing in front of them, telling them what to do, getting them to that point? And so I just started networking with industries. In the case of music, it was Ableton Live out of Berlin, where the kids produced music and learned how to run that software and that whole process of creativity in the arts and live performance. And my high school kids did a project called Band Together, where they learned to produce music, not just to create a hit single, but to learn how to produce music so that their thoughts could come out about what was important to them. So they really wanted to produce even other students' thoughts. So like an artistic rendition of student passions. And that went so well, and it helped me as a teacher understand that although what I was doing was cool before, there's so much more out there. And then it's like the aha moment for me for that was like, that should happen in every class, in every grade. Why do we need to be standing in front of students telling them what to do? And that you certainly have to do a little bit of that in schools, but I think the majority of what we could be doing is connecting them to infinite possibilities in every area. And then, so it was a discovery process. And then I've had a lot of help from industry along the way. And currently I work at STEM School Highlands Ranch, but I tell everybody, and I really just work for students because I see what I spend my time on, and what I really want to do at this stage of my life, and the things I've seen is I want to find ways to connect students to their own potential and to what they could be as far as in their career, but also what could they do in life. And our world has plenty of problems that need to be solved. How do we prepare kids to do that? And I think we fall short of that in many instances. We might prepare kids to get an A on an exam or pass a test or get into the college they wanted, something like that. But is that really going to translate into the human skills it's going to take to project manage, to work as a team, to listen to others, to be aware of everything that's out there that could be used to solve a problem or to help humanity in some way? And so it's huge. It's overwhelming. It
huge.
keeps me up at night, but I also love it.
I believe that.
Yeah. So now I'm not thinking about what 5 choral pieces am I going to pick out for the next term to tell people to sing at a concert. Um, I'm thinking about, oh my goodness, this is overwhelming. There's so many students in the world, so many people that can help them, and so many gaps to be filled in what we're doing and what we could be doing. It's exciting though. It's really fun because I get to witness students discovering, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that was there.
So tell me, as I told you folks, his excitement is contagious and infectious, and you see it and you can hear it if you're just listening. Tell me, I so resonate. I'm the parent of 2 teenagers, and I so resonate with this idea of making learning, like bringing out the humanity in learning and making it interesting and real and finding their passion and their connection to it. And I know that you've been doing that at the STEM school and probably elsewhere for years, right? But what was talk a little bit about your outreach and your engagement with rural communities? What inspired that? And I think to some extent it was your connection with industry. But talk a little bit about that piece and how you've reached out to rural and the stops and starts and all of those pieces.
Well, again, sort of an accident. So I was working at the STEM school in Highlands Ranch, and we got to know the Nathan Yip Foundation. And the Nathan Yip Foundation does a lot of stuff in China, but they're based out of Colorado. And they were like, we want to help the underserved in Colorado. Who is that? And so they decided, well, probably rural areas. They don't seem to have the same resources and the same connections that a lot of the urban schools have. So let's do something there. So we were challenged to find something to do there. And I said, well, we can't go move out there, and we can't move the industries out there. We could use the internet. We could connect industry leaders and other students. We could get people to collaborate and work across different areas. That way, there's got to be a way to do that. That's not online learning. It's not an adult talking at a student. It's actually students collaborating together with subject matter experts and other students and other schools, much in the same way that industry's been doing it for at least 18 years, those kind of connections. And then personally for me, the drive to do this was that I'm from a rural community in Eastern Colorado. And,
Where's that? I forget.
My dream was to be a geologist. But when I got to college, I realized that I had no idea what a geologist was. And I didn't have the classes to prepare me. So here I was in math and chemistry and all these classes, competing with students who had schools who had those programs, and my school didn't. And for me, I gave up. I honestly just said, I'm not good enough to do this. I don't know enough to do it. And it was really tough. But the truth is I could have done it. I just didn't have
Well,
the
we're glad
resources.
you didn't. I'll tell you that right now. We're glad that you landed exactly where you did, and that circumstance brought you where you did, and that you're driven by that experience to change the game for kids in rural schools.
Yeah.
And that game is changing quite a bit, and we talk about that a lot here. That's one of the hopes and dreams for the podcast, is to expand awareness about the great things happening in rural, to get other industry excited about connecting in rural. So talk to us about that a little bit. How have you engaged your industry partners, and what has been the upside for them in reaching out and connecting urban and rural kids?
Oh, this is like a million podcasts. It's so cool. There's everything
Yeah.
from very recently, we've been working on internships with Lockheed Martin. And so connecting students to multiple Lockheed Martin engineers, and they have a mentor for small groups of students, and they design something of a student's choice, informed and inspired by the aerospace industry, and they get to work on it, and they get treated like adults, and they discover things, and they discover how to solve the unknown versus solve the known. So there are those kinds of experiences. There are a lot of classroom collaborations, and that's probably how I started, was just like, hey, I'm going to get a hold of Lone Star School, which, by the way, is a wonderful school, and say, Craig, out at Lone Star, let's get your students and our students together, and let's do something. And then we'll try to bring in somebody from industry to inform us, since as teachers, we might not know all the moving parts to the problem that we're solving. And so we did a number of those case studies, those pilots, whatever you want to call them. Just did a lot of those, and then learned, and it failed. We failed
Yeah.
on our first attempts, and we're finding that that's good. That's a part of the process. That's how you learn. And what was amazing is the adults, we don't like to fail, but the students really get that. Oh yeah, you try to figure out this unknown, and you probably don't figure it out on the first time, and so you get up and you redesign it and go again. And so we just kept. There's a lot of those that we've done. And I sort of also invented a little space, and it was a room, but more than that, an approach called the sink. And it was just like a little experiment. What would happen if we weren't confined to just a room with desks? What if students could be active and moving around and designing things and making things, and at the same time collaborating with subject matter experts from across the world and other students? What would that look like? What would that room feel like? What would that approach feel like? So we did that. And I don't know, there are too many to mention experiments that we did, everything from social studies, building bridges together to learn about history of those kind of things, to lots of science and computer science.
And this model, just to be clear, I think this model, consistent with the work that we'll talk about in a minute around the new water project you're designing, brings kids from all over the state together, right? I mean, maybe not physically together, but they're together via Zoom or whatever platform, and they're engaging and learning from and with each other, correct?
Yeah, well, in fact, because we walked through the fire, and we did all of these pilots and collaborations. And Michelle, you know what the start of this looked like, and I was lost. I really was lost, and I had a desire to do something, but I had no idea how to accomplish it. And but I'm happy to say now that because we've done it so many times, and we keep drawing in expert educators and experts in different industries, that we're avoiding a lot of the pitfalls that we went through early on. And this water project that you're talking about represents that. It's based, I told Michelle about natural resources education program pilot that we did last spring. So COVID hits. Here we have these people from the natural resources education program that wanted to do something collaborative on the idea of the oil and gas industry and energy. And so we had experts that came in. We had the students work on design and project based upon the expert advice given to them. And then I worked with this wonderful educator. Her name is Ann Tweed, and she has books published about how to teach science. And she's been in Guam. She's done projects around the world, so she's got a real global repertoire of techniques that she can use. And so we were able to really come up with some basic structure. Now we don't want to have it so scripted that you can't, it's not agile, but basic things. You got to have a really clear defined goal. How many sessions are we doing? And these were all virtual because they had to be, right? So because we're in the time of COVID. And then what are the measurables for the outcome? And then how do you share that out as a storyline so that people will realize it was a success without having to read a 300-page document. So those are the
Greg sent me the video for it's NREP, right? Is the acronym?
Yeah, that was the
project.
video that you saw. So we
that
had gone
got
through.
Me super excited. We'll include that in our show notes as well. It's the kids coming together, 4 or 5 different groups of kids, rural, urban, I think international as well. There's a group of kids from Belize solving sort of the oil and gas industry's crisis around dropping prices. And each team coming, different experts in the field engaged with the kids to open their eyes to different aspects, career opportunities, but different aspects of the problem. And then each team coming up with their own solutions. It's about a 10-minute video, and especially for educators or industry out there, it's a great short and sweet telling of how to engage kids and how to engage professionals. I think it's a win-win for everybody, right? Everybody's thrilled to be. I have friends that are dying to get into this water project as just something to sort of supplement their own, workday, let's say. So talk a little bit about the curated experience that you're building. And one thing Gregg does is brings together just strong coalitions and collaboration across industry and nonprofits. So talk about who you've got engaged in the water project at this point and where you're at.
Yeah, well, we learned from the NREP project, and so we made some adjustments that hopefully this river systems engineering project will even go better. And the title is still unknown. I think it's maybe water is for everyone. River systems engineering, something to do with that. But it's basically connecting the topic of water from everywhere in Colorado where snow comes down in the mountains to what happens when it gets into the metropolitan areas to what about water in the eastern plains of Colorado. And so what are the dynamics? And so the kids will choose projects informed by that topic. And the key to it was finding the industry person who can inform that. In this case, it was John Fulton from the USGS. So John.
And that's U.S. Geological Survey?
Yes. And he was, well, I don't think teachers understand what they do. It's pretty cool. So he's telling us about, drones and satellites and models and high-tech solutions to issues around engineering in the area of water, and we had no idea it was there. And so now we're like, well, our kids need to be prepared for that world if they're going to succeed on these very important topics. And so that just inspired like a what if we brought some of those skills that John Fulton had told us about that they actually use at the USGS, and we allowed students to design and think of solutions related to that and learn those skills that they're going to need to be the future Johns of the world, so that they can be in the USGS and accomplish these wonderful goals for humanity. So and then the way we've tweaked it, even from NREP, is we're really clearly defining what is the role of a facilitating teacher. So you have a rural teacher, and maybe that rural teacher is an expert in science, but maybe they're not. And how would they be involved in this project? And what is their role as a facilitator? How does that differ from being their role as a teacher who might be delivering a lesson or a curriculum? And it's actually quite different. And so for me, the great news is I can facilitate an educational experience in aerospace, for an example, or geology. I'm still getting some geology in here. I figured it out. But how can I do that when I personally don't have that experience? So my skills as a facilitator involve a lot of listening, a lot of networking, a lot of bringing in the people in this industry. So that's what we're doing. And there's a combination of presentations by subject matter experts, but here's the key. Normally schools will say, hey, we want to bring in so-and-so from an industry to tell us what they do. So our little tweak to that is, hey, we want to bring in somebody from industry to tell us what our students need to do to thrive in the future of that industry. So that's a different take, right? You have to know what the industry does, but you also have to start a discussion or start a process where the students and the industry discovers together, what are these kids going to have to know to thrive in that industry? And so that's a whole different take on it. We're not delivering the known; we are solving the unknown, and that means everybody, even the subject matter experts, are literally solving the unknown.
Well, and I've seen my own kids respond to these types of hands-on engaged projects, that they're going to engage in this process because they're interested in water issues in Colorado, which is the first winter, and then it's sort of a self-directed, self-guided project for them or task for them. And I've just seen it's changed. Both of my kids have been engaged in these. I think it's middle school students, right, Greg? That's the target audience.
We decided to design this, and you mentioned the word curated experience. And so basically, curated experience has a few phases. Phase one, discovery. discover the problems that need to be solved, discover the people who are currently trying to solve them, discover the technology and the tools that you might need to solve that problem. And then phase two is really important. It's basically a role reversal. So you've heard from industry experts, you've seen some of the tools, you've done your own research as a student to find out information and to discover, and then you have to do something with all of that information, and then all the while sort of a mentor in an advisory role, and to help you, an industry mentor who helps so that you don't go off into something that's not real. And they don't tell the students what to do, but they help guide them to answers that are real in ways that maybe a teacher couldn't. And then after that, it develops into relationships that those are the really fun ones. They go places,
Right.
Students are solving problems. You can't believe that a student actually was involved in something like that. But yeah, the curated.
Yeah, it's really exciting to watch as a parent, and obviously you can see and hear from Greg as a professional as well. I want to welcome Danielle has joined us, our co-host in our Zoom world. She was able to hop over from another meeting. We're getting ready to wrap up this part of our conversation with Greg, but as part of our new Redefining Rural platform and taking our show on the road, we're going to follow Greg, and he's built a great team. He's got some rural teachers, middle school teachers on the team. He's got a lot of other sort of industry leaders and nonprofit sort of sector partners, and we're going to kind of track them and tell their story as they go and talk to the kids as they get engaged. I think, are you still looking at a January launch for this? I know you wish it launched 3 months ago, but are you?
I'm always ready to do it yesterday. But no, we and I'm glad we took our time, because we're really identifying sort of the basic structure so that this is meaningful for all parties. We have a design team meeting this week, teachers to really help advise the project, so they're involved in the design of this project. And then January, kick it off, and it'll probably be about 5 virtual sessions. And but the sessions there'll be things to do for the students in between, and even in preparation for those sessions, their discovery part, their research, so that they'll be given very specific instructions of, like, check this out before you come to the meeting. Make sure you know this. Make sure you come with curiosity and questions, so that the meetings are more of we level the playing field. Everyone's having interactions virtually that really get to the heart of the problem, versus just one person talking at another person. So that's going to happen. And I can't wait for the next podcast, when I think that I should just be in the background and you should hear from the experts, which will be the students.
Yeah.
I think that's
and I want to hear
the
from
real
the
story
teachers too. I think there's oftentimes, especially rural teachers, and we've talked a bit about how they have more preps, and it's a different job, but they get overwhelmed at the idea of something new. So it'll be really exciting to hear from the teachers and the kids about how easy you've made this for them, and how worth it is in terms of the return on investment and engagement and excitement for the students. So thank you, Greg. We look forward to, thank you for all of your work for rural and for all of our kids. And we look forward to continuing this conversation in the coming months.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for having me. And I just really appreciate all the work that you've done through the years and bringing communities together and helping us connect for the good of all the students in Colorado, and I believe even beyond Colorado. So thank you for that.
Thank you.